Catus Maximus here, this time with an adjustable ratcheting and unique adjustable wrench overview and review video. And yes, we're almost done with the wrench videos. I'm going to do one more wrench video, which is a big collection of large wrenches, because there appears to be about 2 videos on YouTube just showing off large wrenches. So I'll be doing that next. This is just a quick video. I'm going to get through this real fast. Just discussing various different types of non-standard crescent wrenches, adjustable end wrenches. For people who may not be entirely familiar with adjustable end wrenches, they are a unique wrench that is very popular. They are commonly sold as the one wrench that does everything, and that is because you can adjust and close the size to any fastener that you need, and so you don't need a whole array of wrenches. And they also tend to be very strong. So these are some unique ones. We'll go ahead and get through them here. In the early 20th century, so around 1910 or something like that, 1920s, 100 years ago or more, this is what the wrenches used to look like. This is actually a high-quality Meadville wrench, but this is the style that you would look at. They would have a long anvil. This is a real high-quality one with a nut that you can turn to get real tight onto fasteners, but most of them were like this. They had a jaw that slid up and down, and this is just what people use. This wrench probably weighs 5 to 7 pounds. It's amazingly heavy. It has a cast steel handle, and it's really stood the test of time. Also, as far as tools that are used as hammers that aren't designed to be used as hammers being used as them, these old ones are kind of unique because of the fact that they had this extra protrusion here. So this was a wrench that was actually designed to be used as a hammer as well. I actually think there's some company that still makes wrenches of this style today just for the vintage tool users. And in certain situations, these work great as clamps. Those wrenches were replaced by these. This is a Diamond Cock and Horseshoe Company. This is what ended up getting absorbed by Crescent. And then Crescent used some of this design to create what became the standard. And you can see some of the aspects. These diamond wrenches were a lot lighter, a lot smaller. They had smaller jaws, that they're easier to get into tighter spaces. And versus that Meadville wrench, this could potentially be adjusted by one hand. So it was a big deal. These weren't chrome vanadium steel or anything. This was made quite a long time ago. And even though these worked well, they weren't known as being the strongest wrenches. Even this one's a little bit bent. The second issue with these types of wrenches here and here is the fact that when you're turning on a fastener, all the force is going directly on this threaded knot. All the force is being taken by these. So that was the other deal with this, is the way this angle is now this jaw, when you're torquing on a bolt, tends to want to bind up, so not all the force is being taken by this threaded fastener anymore. Some of it's being offset onto the beam of the wrench. So that's what they looked like when they're old. And then some of the first modifications of the design were things like this Challenger click stop wrench. Proto still makes them, and they just put a ball dent in the wheel. Like the nice Crescents, they use a spring so the wheel doesn't rattle around and doesn't readjust while you work on it. These were taking it to the next level by actually putting a ball dent in. And they ended up working pretty well because that holds the wheel even more securely. We have stubby ones. Here's a Titan, where they twisted the handles so you have a nice wide surface. I really do like this a lot, because having the nice wide surface, although it does sometimes get in the way because it is so broad. Another thing they do, like on this more modern one, is they try to notch the jaws out. Snap-on has something called flank drive on their open end, which is a similar system. Even though I appreciate these types of systems, what ends up happening, and I've seen on wrenches, is that these little notches and those little cutouts there end up getting smushed and flattened anyway, under heavy use and long-term use. And so initially they seem okay, but they kind of chew up fasteners, and over time you ended up with just rounded out jaws. These are Quality Crafts. There's some other brands that have used this patent, but I believe Quality Craft was the originator of this particular design of wrench. These have a special mechanism where you have a threaded brass rod and a little wheel that inserts into a slot on that rod. There's a little gear on the top of the rod, and if I can, here we go, if we can get a light in there, you can see that there's a screw and a little gear attached to the back of it. And so what that allows you to do is to take this and slide it, and it's actually pretty handy. The issues, of course, with these wrenches, and they weren't popular, is this is easily damaged when they're dropped. Obviously, you have an area where lots of crud can get into there, gets into the teeth, gets into the gears, and they end up kind of getting sticky and jammed up and not working. But if you keep them clean, they're real handy because if you just need to grab a wrench, you don't know what size you need, it's just super fast and easy just to grab it and close it down on a bolt. Quite frankly, it's as far as grabbing an adjustable wrench and then getting on the fastener and adjusting it, there's nothing faster than this. There's just nothing that's just like that. And of course, here's one that's in a carbon finish. They do run a little bit smoother once they get broken in, but they also start getting sticky. Here's a real cheesy type of ratcheting open end wrench. This style is not only poorly made, but the design isn't very good because the teeth kind of jam up on the fasteners, and they only work in one direction. Craftsman and various other manufacturers have tried this design here, where they have a little retractable cam wheel in there. How these work is you just adjust the wrench so it fits in there, and then if I can get some lighting here. Here we go, this ought to be a little better. It's hard to see the wheel, but see the wheel retracts. There we go. When you go around. And these actually, they work okay. They kind of get fidgety, fall off. One nice thing, I don't know if you can see, is the way these are designed that when you rotate the fastener around, the wheel ends up sitting more towards the center of the fastener, kind of like a flank drive or an edge drive. So it doesn't want to round out the corners. The unfortunate issue with these is they don't take high torque, and if you break bolts or something like that, then it ends up jamming the wheel inside the little slot. So it's an interesting take, but definitely would recommend that just for a collector. There are some of these pipe wrenches that don't have teeth in the jaws. They advertise those as ratcheting. They're some of the worst ones, because even though they ratchet, what we can see here is that it's the bottom jaw just always sits on the very corner of the fastener. Don't recommend using these or the ones that advertise these type of pipe wrenches for using on fasteners. And of course, finally, we have this Crescent they came out with, and versus the old like heavy duty style Crescent wrenches, it's really neat engineering. But unfortunately, it's just so many thin parts. It's not very heavy duty, and due to the nature of the way it ratchets, it works okay, but it ends up getting sticky. And once this thing gets dirtied up, dropped, and maybe the metal plates get dented, or these little wings up here get dented, it won't work very well at all. So you just take this wrench, you would put it on a fastener, and they have a lock so you can use it both directions, because of course ratcheting open end wrenches only work in one direction. And then you would unlock it, and how it works is this whole system slides apart, and then it's supposed to work as a binding action. The problem is if you start going fast, it doesn't really want to, it doesn't close up properly, and then I can see just now it starts doing that. Once you get crud in there, then this jaw is just not going to retract at all. So anyway, that was just a quick box wrench, or excuse me, adjustable end wrench overview of various different types. Once again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Catus Maximus out. Quick addendum here. This was the one wrench I forgot to talk about, which was an attempt at an adjustable box wrench. And in most situations, it's a bit too bulky and clunky to really work well. But in certain situations, a wrench like this is nice, because if you have a bolt that you want the wrench to attach to, maybe a plastic handle that had a bolt integrated broke off, or adjusting suspension bolts, you have a nut on a long rod instead of using various wrenches or even through ratchets. The nice thing about this is you can actually clamp it onto the bolt. It holds it pretty securely, and then it becomes a handle. Okay, thanks.